take a look now, Tom, at the top 15 recruits for 2019 because it's never too early to talk about recruiting. First guy up at number 15, we've got Chris Hinton, the defensive end, committed to Jim Harbaugh's Wolverines right now. But he's from Georgia, and there has been talk that there might be a flip to the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs would love to poach him, and understandably so. When he's a top 15 recruit, number 4 in the state of Georgia, the number 1 strong side defensive end, that's a guy you want to keep in state. The good news is for Michigan, he does seem to be pretty committed there. Other teams, by the way, are also in the mix here. Alabama's trying to flip him. So we'll see what happens with Hinton, but he committed to Michigan back in August. I think this is where you see the success of a team on the field matter. As long as Michigan doesn't fall apart this year, I would venture to say that Hinton ends up signing and committing to Michigan, and he doesn't flip or anything. I think he'd be a great fit for Michigan, and I think they can point to, hey, look what we did with Mo Hurst. Look what we did in theory with Rashawn Gary as well. I would like to see him go to Michigan. I think it'd be a good fit for him. But you can't go wrong in picking between Michigan and Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, there is no wrong answer for any of these kids because
it's a win-win.
You're picking
all over the board.
a great program that's going to help you get to the NFL, and in the end, that's the dream for these kids. So Hinton, for now, committed to Michigan. We'll see if that remains the case. If I had to guess, I would say yes, he does stay committed there.
So pretty unlikely he's going to flip.
Not going to rule it out, though.
Okay, not going to rule it out. Next guy at number 14. Frank Ladson, the wide receiver, hard commit now to Clemson. Originally from Miami, people were thinking that he was going to commit to the U, though.
Look, when you're from South Dade, you're not supposed to get out of the state.
No.
And yet here comes Dabo coming in and pulls him out of the state of Florida and goes to Clemson. Actually committed just a few days ago on the 14th, a big get for Clemson. I think Ladson is maybe one of those guys you could see make an early impact. He's got really good size. He's only listed at 170, so getting him bulked up is a big deal. You got to add some meat on them bones.
Yep.
But at 6'4", you could see him become maybe a red zone threat because of his size and his length. But look, you'll see it right here. He needs to add a little bit of weight there. So I think that's the big factor there. Is he physically ready to make that early impact? But we've seen Clemson churn out wide receivers. A lot of very talented ones. T. Higgins is the next one up, by the way. I could see Ladson being a guy who says, you know what, I went to Clemson because I wanted to be that next great receiver who makes it to the NFL. I want to be the next Mike Williams, the next Deion Kane, whatever. And I guess as of right now, the next T. Higgins.
There you go. All right.
So I like this gift for Clemson, a very big deal there.
All right. Coming in at number 13, recruit of 2019, we've got Brian Williams, the safety, Texas A&M, hard commit as of January 28th, 2018. The Jimbo Fisher era there.
Yes, we'll see how long he's committed. I don't know if this is really a set-in-stone type deal. I think that A&M will end up with him. But I think that Texas is going to push for him. I see there's interest from Notre Dame as well in him. So we'll see what happens. If I had to guess, I think that, he's from Dallas here. I would think A&M holds on to him. And maybe it's just in part because Texas got all of the DB recruits last year. They got all these talented corners and safeties. Now it's A&M's turn. And I am curious to see, it is the first true year of the Jimbo Fisher recruiting era. Last year didn't really count. He was playing catch-up the entire time. Didn't put him in great shape, didn't leave FSU in great shape. Can we see Jimbo become the guy we saw at FSU normally? The end of the Jimbo tenure for FSU was not a recruiting hotbed, namely that last year. But A&M, he should be able to recruit. They've done a good job of building their facilities. They've given Fisher all he wants from a coaching staff standpoint, money-wise. Williams is the big guy there. He's the number 2 player in Texas. If you're the Aggies, you got to know you're going to be competing with Texas every year, and Oklahoma and LSU and even Ohio State as well, because they come down every now and then to get these top guys. If you're the Aggies and Jimbo, you got to keep these top guys in state and in-house. Otherwise, you're not going to be in good shape.
All right. Well, next up, the number 1 player in Texas, coming in at number 12, Kenyon Green, the offensive tackle. He is leaning on also Texas A&M right now.
Which would be a big get for the Aggies there. LSU, Texas also in the midst. They actually just visited the Aggies back on April 7th, so 10 days ago. Visited Texas back in March. He's named his top 10 teams, Texas and LSU, Texas A&M, all among them there. He's going to narrow his list soon, and I think we're going to have a commitment date in the relatively near future as well. He's going to take a bunch of official visits in May and June. After he does those, I think he's going to have his top 5 out there. A&M, again, was his most recent one. I could see a situation where maybe he tries to commit before his senior year and just tries to get that out of the way. You see kids do that, and I always like the approach there, especially when you're a top-tier guy. Make your commitment, get it out of the way, get locked in, sign with that new early signing period, and just focus on your football season, your senior year, which should be the high point of your high school career. And look, Green's a very talented offensive lineman. He's 6'4", 317. Maybe he moves to guard at some point because he's only 6'4". Either way, I think he's a guy that could make an early impact if he's ready to go in terms of a physical standpoint, which we know it's tough. When you come from high school to college, it's a lot to handle when you're just now making that transition. Right.
Well, Kenyon Green leaning on Texas A&M right now, but so no sleeping on Texas, Georgia, even LSU on the screen. All right, let's take a look at number 11, Clay Webb. From Alabama, grew up a Bama fan and wants to go to Alabama, but isn't committed just yet. Number 1 player in Alabama as well.
He can play guard, he can play center, take your pick there. It's very rare you see a center or a guard as the number one overall recruit that ends up being in the top 10 or top 11. That's not something you typically see. He's going to go to Alabama. It's actually just a matter of when is he going to commit, like what's he waiting for. Like he's been recruiting guys to Alabama. Everything we know about Clay Webb means that when National Signing Day comes, he is going to be with an Alabama Crimson Tide, and it's just a matter of time there. So this is a guy maybe you see get some early playing time. Now, Bama lost their center this year, so they've got a whole, maybe not quite the best timing, but you don't see interior linemen ranked in the top 15. It's just like the NFL draft. You don't see interior linemen go that early. So when you do see someone ranked so highly by the national services, that's when you know, oh, this kid's really good.
Right.
So it's going to be an Alabama commitment. It's just really a matter of when. He visited there on April 7th and August 26th. And of his last 5 visits, 3 of them have been Alabama. Read between the lines. He is going to end up as a member of the Crimson Tide.
It makes you wonder why these guys, go on their Twitter and send, here's my top 12. No order, though.
It's
and
just,
they say.
Hey, attention is nice, and that's not a bad thing. So, like, he's going to end up at Alabama. A lot of Alabama's top recruits, guys like Paul Tyson right now, are friends of Webb there. I would be absolutely stunned if he doesn't end up with the Alabama Crimson Tide, just like the other Tua.
Yeah,
bro, he's gonna end up at Alabama. Like that just is what's gonna happen.
So just a matter of time until we see where Clay Webb ends up at cough, Alabama. All right, moving on into the top 10. We've got Dominick Blaylock, wide receiver. He is committed to the Georgia Bulldogs from the state of Georgia, and he wants to stay in state. So no flipping anytime soon.
We mentioned this earlier. If you're Georgia, you want to keep your top tier players in state. They've done a great job that the past couple years. And Blaylock is the next guy there. Not the biggest guy, only 6 foot, 175, and that's listed weight. So, maybe it's a little fudge because they always end up being fudge there. He's the number 2 wide receiver, number 3 player. Look at that. We've had top 4 players, or top 15 guys. 4 of them are from Georgia. There's a reason the Bulldogs have done so well as of late. Committed to Georgia back in July of 2017. I don't think he's going to flip anytime soon. He had interest from Clemson and Auburn and other guys as well, but everything seems to say he's going to stick with Georgia. I'd be surprised if he decommitted as well.
And also, we have he could be a top MLB draft pick. Is that right?
Yeah, he's talented. Look, I don't know what route he'll end up going, but I would imagine, hey, look, sometimes you see kids that take baseball because it's a little bit easier on your body, and there is more money to be made. Jeff Samardzija comes to mind. Had a very successful MLB career, made more money than he would have made in the NFL, even though he's a pretty good receiver at Notre Dame. Blaylock, by the way, could be a guy that moves to defensive back as well.
Okay, we'll get it inside the top 10 now. At number 9, Devontae Dobbs, offensive tackle, the number 1 offensive tackle in this class, leaning towards the Big Ten, Michigan State and Ohio State, Tom.
So this is a really interesting race because, yes, he's considering Michigan, but they are very much behind. It's kind of a 2-team race as we sit right now. That's Ohio State. That is Michigan State. And I think that actually Michigan State is your front runner. And I think that because Michigan State has a lot of Dobbs' classmates, and that's a big deal. When your friends and your teammates go to the same school, it kind of makes you want to go there too.
And it's funny though because he actually came out saying that Ohio State is separating themselves in every category. So they're definitely trying to pull.
OSU is pushing him hard because
yeah.
when OSU can go into Michigan and get the top recruit, they know that they did something right. But I'm not going to count out Michigan State. I think Michigan could make a push as well here. Then the other top programs, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, they'll all make a push as well. But Dobbs, I don't get the vibe as that close to committing. But I think Michigan State, even though they're typically not in the mix for the top tier recruits, they're not a team that typically finishes in the top 15, top 10. Dobbs might be the exception to that rule that they've had in the past. I am not going to count out the Sparta here as an actual threat for this player.
There you go. All right, next up at number 8, we've got Bru McCoy. He played almost every position in high school, and his most recent visit was back to OU.
Look, it's not often you see a kid listed as a wide receiver / linebacker when you make each of those positions, but that's what McCoy is, and he's from California, so start the California schools. USC, UCLA, maybe Oregon can make a late push for him. Maybe it's a team like Ohio State or Michigan comes in and they put it there. But look, this is another very talented kid from Santa Ana, a bunch of powerhouse high schools out there, Mater Dei among them. So I don't know maybe where McCoy ends up. Maybe you put him at receiver, maybe put him as like a safety or a linebacker somewhere in that range. But he's taken his visits. Oklahoma was the most recent one on April 13th. Texas recently offered him. The Florida Gators did as well. He even went to Colorado, which was an interesting visit to me. But if I had to guess right now with McCoy, from California, typically end up at USC.
Oh, yeah.
Now, maybe Chip Kelly can change that at UCLA, but USC is often the program that ends up getting these kids from California. We saw him close great down the stretch this year in the recruiting class. Maybe they can get a guy like McCoy earlier on and start things off a little bit better.
All right, excited to see where he ends up. Next up at number 7, we've got Owen Pappoe, linebacker from Georgia. So he probably wants to play for that vaunted Georgia defense.
Hey, we already know when he's going to commit. He's actually already planning to commit in a little over 2.5 weeks, about 17 days. Yeah, the countdown's going to commit there. He's going to commit on May 5th. He's from Georgia. So guess what? Georgia is strongly in the mix. Go figure there. Auburn's in there as well. Maybe Tennessee, maybe Texas. He took a visit not that long ago, but I would imagine in the end, or at least he's going to visit Texas later in April on the 27th. LSU was a recent visit. Georgia, though, does seem to be the favorite, and I think that makes sense. Georgia has done a fantastic job right now of recruiting players in the state of Georgia, keeping guys in. And now they lost some guys, but they had a great class last year, and the early is shaping up here because they've done a fantastic job. Auburn's in the mix here as well, but I think it's Auburn, Georgia, your top 2. Clemson maybe because Clemson's off in the mix here. He's taking visits to Bama, LSU, Miami, Penn State, Texas, a lot of programs. I think he's just trying to get a feel there. But the fact that he's going to make his decision before he makes those visits, already announced his deadline, makes me think it's going to be Auburn or Georgia. And in the end, I would go ahead and bet Georgia because I think they're going to keep those guys in state. He's listed at 6 foot 211. Maybe he's a Devin Bush type, an undersized linebacker that brings some speed to you. And that's a big deal for football teams. They love speed.
All right.
Everyone does.
Next up, at number 6 on our top 15 recruits of 2019, Trey Sanders, running back out of IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, known for producing top talent. This guy's great. Visited UF twice in 2 weeks, so possibly could want to stay close to hometown. Also visited FSU a little bit ago as well. What are you feeling for him? Where do you think he best fits him?
Take your pick.
Yeah.
You know what?
He's got all the options.
You know what might matter? Where does he want to play? Does he want to stay at running back, or does he want to move to defensive back? And I know that running back is the fun position because you get to carry the ball, but it's a lot easier to have success as a college player and make it to the NFL as a cornerback than a running back, especially when you have a guy who's in that 6 foot 216 range like Sanders is. Now, I think he's got a good build to be a halfback, but all those Miami programs in terms of the state of Florida, those are the teams in the mix. The Hurricanes, Miami, Florida State, Florida as well. Those are the teams in the mix as well. Bama's in there as well. I would stay in state. Maybe you go to Florida. Maybe you know that Dan Mullen is rebuilding his offense, needs a focal back. Maybe Trey Sanders says, hey, I can be that guy. I can stay in Florida, and I can become that feature back and keep on that side of the ball.
All right, let's move on now. Nolan Smith, defensive end, another guy out of IMG Academy, comes in at number 5 on our top 15 recruits of 2019. Currently committed to Georgia, but still keeping his options open and taking some visits.
I always find that funny when players commit and then they say, yeah, but I'm going to keep my options open.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to commit.
Just
like,
keep your options open.
Maybe just the nice feeling of like, hey, I committed, I've got that locked up, I don't have to worry about that, I can still look at other things, but I've got a spot.
It might just be some pressure, you know.
True,
feel bad.
There's a lot of pressure on these kids. That's a very, very good point. There's a lot of pressure placed on these young athletes. I would imagine he sticks with Georgia. Maybe you see a Clemson or somebody pull away, or FSU make some noise there, but another IMG Academy kid. Strangely enough, we're at number 5. He's only the number 3 weak side defensive end. So guess what? More defensive linemen.
In the top
Time
5.
is a flat circle. This year's draft class for defensive linemen, at least the current guys in college, is unreal. And you got a whole bunch of guys coming in as well.
Well, let's get into the top 5. At number 4, we've got Ishmael Sopsher, defensive tackle out of the state of Louisiana, so leaning towards LSU right now. However, did take some visits to OU and Texas A&M recently.
I bet LSU keeps him. And Ed Orgeron needs a win on the recruiting trail of this level, a top 5 guy. He took a visit to Texas A&M and other programs, but I think he's going to be a good defensive end or defensive tackle, depending on what scheme you play in. I think there's a reason he's a top 4 guy. I think LSU makes perfect sense for him. Bring him in. Maybe let him play early in his NFL career. We've seen LSU have success with defensive players. Maybe Ishmael's the next guy. But Florida, Florida State, Bama, even Michigan, they're all kind of in the mix as well here. But I would be surprised if he doesn't end up at LSU unless there's a coaching change. That's where things get haywire.
That could happen. All right, moving on. At number 3, Tom, we've got Zach Harrison, another defensive end, number 1 kid coming out of the state of Ohio. We thought that he was going to be leaning more towards OSU. However, he is taking a trip this weekend to Penn State.
I think that's interesting. I would still put my money on Ohio State. You typically see, especially kids from Lewis Center, Ohio, Owen Pappoe, that is literally the back door for Columbus.
Right.
Like that is in their backyard. I would be surprised if they didn't get him. A little lanky, still 6'6", 240. Some room to add more meat on that frame. Number 2, we said defensive end. Number 1 kid, of course, in the state of Ohio. Number 3 overall. I think the Buckeyes will find a way to keep him. I think they'll take care of that and keep him in the program. And they can say, hey, look, come be Joey Bosa, come be Stan Hubbard, come be this next great defensive end who's done a great job of churning out as of late.
I don't know. James Franklin has a way with those recruits, man.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see.
Not when they're from Lewis Center.
That's true. That's
so close to Columbus.
All right, well, let's move on now. At number 2 on the top 15 recruits of 2019, Jadon Haselwood, wide receiver. This guy is the total package from the state of Georgia and is, committed to Georgia.
This just sums up Georgia's recruiting class of late because we went through the top 10 guys. Only 3 of them are committed right now. And the 3 guys that are committed to Georgia. There you go.
Just insane.
So Haselwood maybe can make an impact. He's got some nice size there. 6'3", 187. I think that makes sense. I am very curious to see what happens, how early he's able to play. But the number 1 kid in the state of Georgia, that's a guy Georgia had to keep. If they did not keep him, they would have been a little bit upset. They would have been a little bit heartbroken that the kid from Ellenwood didn't want to stay. But they kept him at least for now. Maybe he flips, but I don't really foresee that happening. But we said it last year. I think we're going to say it again this year. Georgia's class is stacked.
What's new? All right, well, let's take a look, Tom, at the number 1 recruit of 2019, Kayvon Thibodeaux, defensive end, set to visit Oregon this weekend for their spring game, visited FSU this past week, and said, quote, I caught a feeling. So, they say this, though, pretty much. They'll tweet something out saying about every school they visit. But
it's fun to go on colleges. Even if you're not an athlete, it's fun to go around and see what the campus is like. So, and I think Oregon's a beautiful campus, so it's easy to kind of fall in love with a little bit there. But he's from Oaks Christian. He's from Thousand Oaks, California. I would bet USC keeps him. As long as they don't fall apart this year, I think USC would be able to keep him. I think he'd be a nice scheme fit for them. A little light, 235 at 6'5", but he can bulk up. FSU kind of in the mix there as well, but my money would be on USC there. And we mentioned them for other players in this top 15 as well. That sets up well for the Trojans to kind of have another strong closing class after not a great start to last year's class, but a good finish from last year.
All right, well, there you have it. Number one, your top 15 recruits of 2018, and that was